Space is probably the most mysterious mystery that worries mankind. We gaze spellbound at the starry sky, dreaming, imagining how such an amazing world was created. Who maintains the order of the universe? We are especially attracted to space in childhood and adolescence. Growing up, many people forget about their dream to go into space, but the inspiration and love for the stars remain for life. We look at the stars with our loved ones, with children we play astronauts with rapture. People who conquer space in Germany and Norway are called Ramfararov, in Kazakhstan Garishkar, in the United States astronauts, and the Chinese call them takenauts. However, the world knows that the primacy in this matter belongs to Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin. Rockets and spacecraft from almost every launch site in the world are launched to the east, in the direction of the rotation of the Earth. Only the Israelis launch to the west, using extra fuel. The fact is that Israel is surrounded by unfriendly countries to the east, the falling rocket stages on whose territory could provoke a military conflict. And if the rocket flies to the west, the stages fall into the Mediterranean Sea. The countdown that invariably accompanies the launch of space rockets was not invented by scientists or astronauts, but by filmmakers. The countdown was first shown in the German film The Woman on the Moon in 1929 to build suspense. Subsequently, when launching real rockets, the designers simply adopted this technique. Astronauts cannot cry the same way we do on Earth. The tears do not flow down, but remain on the eyes in the form of small balloons. In addition, they can cause an unpleasant burning sensation, and the tears have to be wiped away by hand. It turns out that crying as a type of psychological relief is inaccessible to a person in weightlessness. During the first flights, astronauts communicated with the Earth using secret words, so that no one could guess how it all goes. Such words were the names of flowers, fruits and trees. For example, cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov had to signal in case of increased radiation, banana. For Valentina Tereshkova, the first female cosmonaut, the password OK meant that the brake engine was working well, and L meant that the engine was not working. The next task after Gagarin's flight was to go into outer space. Alexei Leonov was the first to do so during a flight on the Voskhod 2 spacecraft. At that time, no one knew how to properly behave in zero gravity. Once in space, Leonov pushed off from the airlock and was twisted hard, but a safety rope kept the astronaut in place. Another problem awaited him. The spacesuit suddenly became very swollen and Leonov could not return to the ship. He simply could not fit into the hatch until he reduced the air pressure in the suit. Because of this, the spacewalk lasted not 12 minutes as planned, but twice as long. The names of the cosmonauts, which seemed unsound to the Soviet authorities, were changed. The first Bulgarian cosmonaut Georgy Kakalov had to become Ivanov, and the Pole Herma Zuski had to become Germa Zuski. The understudy of Mongolian cosmonaut Zugdademedin Gergacha originally had the surname Ganquiag, but at the insistence of the Soviet side he changed it to Ganzarig. Construction of the International Space Station, ISS, began in 1998, and the first astronauts settled on it on October 31, 2000. The ISS was assembled for 10 years as a huge, complex and very expensive construction set. Its length is 110 meters. 6 people live and work on the ISS at the same time. The ISS in the full sense of the word is an international station. 23 countries take part in the project. During a day, the ISS circles the Earth 16 times, so astronauts see 16 sunrises and sunsets. A lot of things change in zero gravity. For example, the distance between vertebrae increases and people grow taller. There was a case when a man became 10.5 centimeters taller. The primacy in the circumvention of the moon belongs to turtles. It happened in 1968. Central Asian steppe tortoises were put in the Soviet spacecraft Zond 5. The turtles were chosen because they do not need much oxygen, do not eat for a week and a half, and stay in a kind of lethargic sleep for a long time. In weightlessness, it is very easy to move around. Astronauts just fly around inside the space station. So muscles lose strength and bones become brittle. The muscles in the legs suffer the most. In order not to learn how to walk, astronauts take vitamins and exercise every day. They work out on a treadmill, to which they are strapped in order not to fly away. Many astronauts say that the descent leaves the most vivid impression of the entire space flight. Through the porthole they see the flames that engulf the ship as it passes through the dense layers of the atmosphere. The ship descends to Earth on a large parachute, but it does not unfold immediately, so as not to have too much jerk. A very small parachute unfolds first, which pulls the second one after it, a big one, and only then the main big parachute unfolds. The entire parachute descent takes 15 minutes. In 1977, the U.S. spacecraft Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 were launched. For 30 years they flew around the solar system, studying the planets, and in 2007 they left its limits and continue to fly on. Each Voyager had an aluminum box attached to it with a message for the aliens in the form of a gold-plated disc. The disc contains information about us and our planet, music, greetings in various languages, photographs with views of Earth, and scientific data about humans. Newsreel footage captures the meeting of Gagarin after the first space flight in Moscow, and most of all, many remember his untied string. But in fact the lace was a detached suspender for socks, which used to be made without an elastic band. Gagarin's slipped sock made the buckle hurt his leg, but he didn't stop and walked to the end of the lane. Astronauts have many rituals necessary for a successful launch into space and return to Earth. In particular, it is necessary to pee on the wheel of the bus that takes them to the launch pad. It is believed that the founder of the tradition was Yuri Gagarin, who asked to stop the car in the Kazakh steppe on the way to Baikonur. By the way, female cosmonauts also honor this tradition. They take a jar of urine with them, which they splash out on the wheel. At the site of the landing of Yuri Gagarin near the village of Smolovka in the Saratov region April 12, 1961, the arriving military installed a sign. More precisely, they dug up a post with a sign that read, "Do not touch." December 4, 61, 10:55 a.m. Moscow time. During the final stage of the flight, Yuri Gagarin dropped the phrase, about which for a long time people preferred not to write anything, "I'm burning, goodbye, comrades." Astronauts who get into orbit have completely changed their food preferences. For example, International Space Station astronaut Peggy Whitson said that her favorite food on Earth, shrimp, just disgusts her in space. Kimchi is the national product in Korea. In 2008, this sauerkraut snack was brought aboard the International Space Station for astronaut Lee So-yeon. The South Korean government spent more than $1 million to ensure that the smell of kimchi would not be too corrosive to other astronauts. In 2001, an experiment was conducted that showed that snorers on Earth do not snore in space. Sleeping in space is a really tricky thing. Astronauts are in weightlessness, so they sleep in any position, and they have to strap themselves down so that they don't hit objects around them. Also, they usually have their own little cabin in which they sleep in a sack. Water is a scarce commodity in space. It comes almost entirely from Earth. That's why astronauts have to conserve this valuable liquid. They moisten a washcloth with special soap that foams, but does not need to be washed off. Astronauts also brush their teeth without water. The toilet seat is designed individually for each astronaut because they need to sit on it with maximum precision. Space toilets in both the Russian and American segments of the ISS are designed and made in Russia. The cost of each of them is approximately $19 million. Many, if not all, astronauts have felt the so-called space sickness. In its case, the vestibular apparatus behaves inconsistently and the person becomes disoriented. Sometimes it is so deep that it is not clear where the legs and where the arms are. Since recently, one of the prerequisites for a flight into space is knowledge of the Russian language. After NASA refused to operate space shuttles in 2011, all the cosmonauts and astronauts get to the ISS exclusively on Russian Soyuz spacecraft. But good luck brings the inscription Tanya on the side of the launch vehicle. Once upon a time, one of the crew decided to perpetuate the name of his girlfriend in this way. The next time the inscription was missing and the rocket exploded. Since then, the unknown Tanya always protects the cosmonauts. Astronauts eat 4 meals a day and their diet is 3,200 calories. When selecting dishes, both the taste preferences of astronauts and national culinary traditions of members of space expeditions are taken into account. For example, when an astronaut from Japan was on board the ISS, his diet included sushi, traditional for this country. Since Yuri Gagarin's flight, more than 550 people have orbited the Earth. Mankind continues to explore space, and who knows, maybe in a few hundred years, traveling from star to star will be as easy as flying now.